Hey,
Hey,
Richard, what's good?
how you doing? Yeah. Well, for me, I've been on vacation last week. Took that week off, and then this week I'm technically working like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but there's not many people in the office around this time, so it's pretty chill. Uh,
All right, cool.
yeah. There's a video game I've been playing, and I've been trying to make some YouTube videos. And then there's this whole Advent of Code programming challenge it's over now. It every day December until Christmas there's a problem, and there's some unfinished ones that I haven't done yet. But yeah, I've had a pretty relaxed time. I guess my wife is visiting like relatives. Like they went on kind of like a 3-4 day like car trip. I didn't want to go on a car trip, so I got like more time to myself and just kind of hanging out with my cat in my apartment.
Oh,
What's
you got a cat.
going on? Yeah, about a year. I don't know, about a year ago now. I got this cat, and the cat is like 1.5 years old right now. It's a pretty good cat.
Great,
What
man. Yeah, I love cats.
What have you been up to?
Well, I lost track of time there watching some Halo. One of the perks.
Halo. Oh,
Yeah,
right,
there's a Halo
the
show.
TV show.
Yeah.
How's that?
Oh, it's pretty awesome. It's pretty
I
awesome. Yeah.
haven't heard. That's weird. There's been like relatively low coverage. I haven't heard anything other than maybe the initial announcement, whenever that was, that like it was coming out. It's weird how little publicity they've done.
I didn't even know Paramount Plus was a streaming platform until I stumbled upon it on Apple TV.
Yeah. Every time I
Yeah,
look up a show, like I hear about a new show, and then I learn there's another streaming platform that is exclusive to that show. It's like every show that I know of is on a different streaming platform. And so that's actually what I do. Like if I hear a show I want to watch, I subscribe 1 month to like the streaming platform, and then I have it auto cancel after the month, and I just watch the show like that month, and then I do nothing until another show comes out.
pretty sure that's what a lot of people do,
Yeah.
with
What's the
Netflix
plot?
being the exception. I
Yeah,
think it's
Netflix. Well, Netflix, I let that like auto cancel. Also, I never, I always like subscribe and immediately cancel, and then it'll run out at the end of the month, and then I just don't resubscribe until I end up watching something, and
yeah, they got
I think that works pretty well.
a commercial version, so you pay like $5-6, and you just get a commercial once in a blue moon, and much cheaper than the normal premium.
I
The
don't know.
the
Yeah,
plot of
I would
Halo,
pay anything to avoid commercials.
yeah, the plot of Halo is, yeah, I think it's before the first game. You're
Maybe
getting
it's
some
following the
backstory,
books.
maybe, but it's a bit of backstory with regards to Master Chief, and I'm pretty sure it's before they stumbled upon the ring. That's all I'll
Does it
say.
start like where he's like an orphan, basically, or they kidnap him or something?
There's orphan backstory, yeah.
Yeah, that's the first book. uh the first book starts with, I don't know what the show does, but the first book is like he gets kidnapped, they clone him, give the clone to the parents never know, and then he goes to this like training camp with all these kids, and it's like a boot camp, and then they eventually like do all this hormone stuff, and they make their bones like stronger, and then they give them the Spartan armor, and like only they're strong enough to like use this crazy armor, and then actually there's a mission that like wipes out all the other Spartans except for him, and that's it. And then you start the first game as being like the last living Spartan.
Yeah, I don't remember what happens to the other ones. I don't know if they all died on Reach or what, but yeah,
I think
it's
that's generally, yeah.
I would like to be
Maybe
able to
there's a game
watch.
that covers.
You know how
Yeah.
like Star Wars has the episodes, but it started off with like 4, 5, and 6.
Right.
The first Star Wars was episode 4, and then you got 1, 2, and 3, and then you got a whole bunch of other shit.
Yeah.
Well,
There's 9 total.
in Disney, well, there's also like fillers too, like
Side story.
Solo.
I think some of
Yeah,
those follow the comics a little bit, but then they also go their own way as well.
Mandalorian, all those types that kind of like fit in
Yeah.
between. But Disney has it all laid out in chronological order. So it'd be nice to be able to see that with like the Halo franchise as well. If they could do the same kind of thing where it's not just a TV show, but like a bunch of movies that cover progression of the Halo game. I think
You
that'd be
find like
sick.
a good often when they make a movie, people end up wanting a TV show because the TV show overall is like so much more longer in duration. Like a 10 episode season is like at least 5 hours of content, which is like, 2 movies worth. And if you have like 6 seasons, often
Yeah.
like if they do a movie, it's so condensed. Often like if it's a rich universe, whenever there's a movie, everything happens so fast, and it would be nice to do more like slow character building. But then the problem with the TV shows, there's always like a year where they change up the directors or they underfund the show and it gets really bad, and but like a bunch of people are still watching it and they all slowly realize that the show's not good anymore. That's like the inevitable like fate of a show unless they somehow like, but they would never like stop producing a show when it's still making money. So there's always going to be like a final season that's kind of like tanking the show. But I guess it's still worth it for like the early seasons.
Mm.
They could just do
Well,
one, like no more seasons, just do one episode at a time. Like everybody pays in advance, they make one episode, and then if they never get enough money, they stop making episodes.
I don't know. I'm not a producer or yeah, I
Yeah.
don't
Or
or
whatever
a
those people
director.
are.
I don't know if it's more cost effective to film the whole bloody thing because like building and tearing down a set is quite a bit of work. So, but yeah, no, it's like I was listening to a podcast there. TL Too Long Didn't Read, so
Oh yeah.
TLDR, and
Yeah.
it's kind of funny. A lot of hands in that pot, a lot of personalities all over the place, but it's funny and it's pretty informative. And they were talking about Netflix and how, like, for the first time, it actually like showed its numbers in order to like flex because Netflix is doing better than all the other streaming platforms. And the theory is just because they just have a lot of garbage TV. I mean, people just want to numb their minds, right? They don't necessarily care if it's good or not. And so I gotta say, Netflix definitely does have a lot of garbage on it because I
Yeah.
find myself scrolling through that. I'm like, I'm gonna go watch Disney or something else. So that I got a lot of subscriptions, but I don't really pay for them. I borrow them off of family. But yeah,
Yeah.
Netflix is the one thing where I pay for the cheap version. And it's just yeah, mostly garbage. Some of it's okay.
Yeah, I never
But that's
looked
a
into it, but I wonder if that number sharing was like a result of something to do with the writer's strike. Because like a lot of the writers were saying like they would get these super small paychecks from Netflix, and they would inquire why they didn't get paid more, and Netflix would be like shady around the numbers. But maybe Netflix is like sharing those numbers just to show that like they're underpaid, like they're paying small amounts for big shows because actually people just watch like random trash on Netflix, and so by viewer their formula actually allows them to pay like big name show writers not that much because the when you
uh,
spread out everyone's views, I don't know.
I think
Yeah,
it was
maybe it's
just
something
more
that
of a
can do it
it
too.
was more of a flex because they don't have a lot of
Mhm.
churning, I think is what they call like you're a churner where you subscribe and then you immediately cancel. They have a lot less of that on
Yeah.
Netflix. And I think they're just flexing because yeah, one of the guys on the podcast said, he was in one of the shows and he didn't get paid much. And he's like, whoa, whoa. He's like, based off the numbers, my show is like one of the top 10 viewed and I'm getting paid peanuts. So he's like, them airing this makes me wonder, like,
Yeah.
why wasn't I paid more? So
Yeah.
them hiding it makes sense. Them actually showing their numbers can just piss a lot of people off. So it was a flex, but I think that flex probably ticked a lot of people off. But
Yeah.
I'm not an expert on Netflix. I just interested in hearing about the companies that are doing the best and trying to figure out where to invest next.
S&P.
So, like, do I do S&P 500 or do I just do the Magnificent Seven? Because I watch them and I'm like, I don't know. I see they got some crazy growth, but can they sustain it? And that's the thing is And this is the question that now that I'm wondering, now that I'm more focused on money, is our economy sustainable? And for me, the answer is no. I don't. I don't think you can have unlimited growth. I think there's going to be ebbs and flows, and um, or ups and downs rather. Bubbles pop, or there's going to be some growth followed by some recession, and I'm there's just so much unknown. Like I almost feel like I want to kind of just close up and sit on a safe interest rate of like 5% or something, even though all this growth is happening, because there's a lot of doom. What are they called? Fear mongers out there, but credible fear mongers, people that
Right.
actually know money. So, like in my mind, I see Bitcoin as potentially just blowing up, but at the same time, there's these people that are saying eventually, like people are going to realize that it will never take over because the government simply just will not allow it. But that's the whole idea of the blockchain networks, is to prevent government interference. But if it never can be used in, like, that currency can't be used in the real world, and let's say if they decide to tax the fuck out of people, like 90% tax on whenever you change your crypto over to cash, I mean, that could kill, at least in my mind, that could kill all of that, the whole crypto world. I mean, they're using it. So that's the thing, is like you got all this all these transactions that are happening in the dark, whether it be for weapons or child porn, human trafficking, all the bad shit that people don't want tracked. But if that digital money can never actually be brought into our economy, then does it really have value? If the government taxes us into the ground for pulling it out, does it really have value? And that's something I'm wondering, can they do that? Can they sanction such heavy taxes? They can do what the fuck they want. I mean, there's income tax, property tax, there's micro taxes of the yin yang in Canada. So I do wonder, like, yeah, the Bitcoin halving is happening soon, like April. A couple months after that, value's going to go up. And then they possible ETFs in the US. And then if BlackRock can pour a bunch of money into Bitcoin, well, it's just going to make it skyrocket. But then if the government decides to pull the rug out from underneath it, what then?
I guess whatever happens though must have that impact on the S&P. Like I kind of enjoy like having some kind of base rate, like 5%, 8% a year on average with the S&P, and knowing that like all of these things, like whatever happens, like the streaming takes off, or let's say everyone gets like a basic income paycheck, or crypto takes off, like all of this money that people get will make its way back into just the economy overall, and will boost like just the spending and the businesses and stuff that are happening in the general economy, which will, all that money will sort of eventually get spent on something that one of those S&P companies like owns, and that'll continue to just grow the economy overall. And I guess my thing would be, like, I would definitely take 10%, like 10% ish of my total wealth, and just gamble that on something. Like I would invest in a specific company, or I would invest in like something crazy like crypto, maybe 10% or less of my total wealth. But I think it's got to be like 90% of the value of your portfolio should be like S&P, as like a stable long-term guarantee. And then just because if we're thinking like, if we're trying to make a gamble on something and we think it's going to go up like tenfold, then you really don't have to put that much money in it to see like a great return. Like, like $1,000, if you expect something to increase like tenfold, you'll make like 10 grand, and that's like a great return on investment. Then, take 9,000, put it in the S&P, and then do it again, and try to make bets that like have the potential to go like, tenfold, and then but never risk. Like I think that's long-term strategy. You have to never risk the bulk. Like I guess I think of like poker, like you never want to go all in. It's too much risk. Like you just keep 90% of your chips, take 10% and risk that and play with that and try to win something, but always have like a strong like defense where, like 90% of your money is safe and it's growing and it's planned out for retirement. And then you just have like the 10% that you work with to try to grow the larger pot without risking an insane amount or something. And especially with the like every so often the S&P does dip like during like a recession or whatever, or they call it like a periodic like adjustment. The S&P will just like dip like 10%. And if you see the S&P dip like 10%, then you know for sure like within like 2-3 years it's going to be back where it was. And so then it's like as soon as it dips, just take any extra cash you have and like buy S&P, knowing that like it's going to go back to where it was and then keep going. And the only question is like, of course, long term. But then I feel like if there was ever a day where the S&P just went flat or where the S&P crashes, then the whole like America has crashed, and then all bets are off. Like it doesn't matter how much money we have somewhere else. Like the whole economy is dead, and who cares? Like no one is getting out of that unscathed. And so it's like, what are we really risking with the S&P? Like if society collapses, who cares what investments we have, But yeah, I think I've rarely seen anyone suggesting like risking more than 10% of a portfolio, like on Reddit. And there's like Reddit financial and stuff. And they always say something like a 90-10 split, like 90% index fund, 10%, risky investments or spend on yourself or something.
Yeah,
But
Warren
yeah,
Buffett did a 10-year experiment. S&P 500 versus
yeah,
hedge funds,
like
and
yeah, or
he
like
beat
yeah,
them.
experts.
He fucking
Yeah,
destroyed them just by doing nothing. And these guys were actively managing their portfolios and came nowhere near.
yeah. And imagine like how much
Nowhere
energy you
near.
save. Like if you just like everything goes S&P, you could take you could spend all day trading stock and has a full-time job and still lose to the S&P. But if somebody like puts money in the S&P and then goes and gets like a second job, then they're making an income and their money's growing and probably going to win anyways. And all the while, they're just like taking paychecks and putting them also in the S&P. And I feel like the amount of overall effort, like you just take your money, put it S&P, and then you're just done. You don't have to do anything else. You just sit there. And then with all the extra energy, you can like just have leisure time or uh just have like a full-time job even, or a part-time job, like with the energy that you're not spending on stocks. And then with that income, like that income's being invested and it's also just coming in. And I feel like that's got to be like a stronger play than trying to earn like a yearly living off watching like so closely the stock market or something.
Yeah, I get that indexes or indices are, a way to diversify, but not, I mean, you're spreading the risk. I get it. And I just don't like the idea of the only way to grow the money is in the stock market. But that's not true. There's other ways to grow the money, like in real estate, for instance. And I'm looking into other things where I have more control, but everything I'm looking at, there's always some element of risk.
Yeah. And
Always
it's
some
maybe
element
like
of risk.
sometimes it's so hard. I love it when like the risk is just like very, like if you buy a stock, it goes up and down. You can tell, like you can look at its history. But with something like real estate, the risks are so like hidden, like the maintenance fees, the tax, the overall market, like the floods, the insurance, just like the developments around in the neighborhood. And like there's so many like hidden little things that will come out of nowhere. that like you eventually, I guess you maybe you make a little bit of extra money for dealing with that stuff. Like it's like a riskier investment that's going to pay off more. Like you own the home, you own stuff, you can do what you want with it, but it does become kind of like a little bit of a job and a little bit of like a unknown quantity given all these things that just because it's this large physical object like break-ins, thefts, like vandalism, like there's so many like out of left field things that can happen that when you add it all up, it seems like you got to really like do your homework to mitigate all that, and then you never really know or something.
The more I learn about it, the more I realize the mistakes I'm making too, right? Like when things are going up, usually means it's too late.
Mm.
So for instance, like
Yeah, it's true of
Bitcoin
all
climbed
stock.
Bitcoin climbed up pretty high, and and then it kind of just plateaued, which is different. I mean, from what I've seen, it's climbed and then crashed and climbed and then crashed. This time it's plateaued around 55,000 Canadian. Goes up to 57, 55 average. And I mean that's different. But I made the mistake of the fear of missing out, and I keep making that mistake because I believe something's going to blow up, but I just don't understand to what, like, how high. And crypto has the potential to just 1,000% increase. It just goes to the moon. And I just didn't want to miss that with Bitcoin. So I'm in it. But there's these other things, these fees, these transaction fees, right? And that adds
Yeah.
up. And like when you talk about S&P 500, if I want to invest in the American version, there's a conversion fee to go from Canadian dollars to US dollars. So if I want to buy $100,000 in S&P, and it's a 1% fee to transfer all my fucking money, that's a lot of money that I'm just gonna spend to convert my money over, and that bothers me. But
Yeah, it's definitely like it's like long term, and yeah, it's definitely like expensive to move money around. You got to like just pay that fee, lock it in, and almost like use that fee as like a to discourage you from moving it, from shuffling it too much or taking it out when you don't need it.
mm,
Like it's kind of good because it's like it makes it easier to like make that one decision one time and then forget about it. And for me, I think there was like I think it was free for me to like get in, but like it was like $10 per transaction to like sell. And so then that like discourage me from selling. So then, which is not so bad because you just want to not sell ever, like kind of.
well, I look at all this stuff, and I see the system that keeps us stuck. You can only contribute so much to your RRSP. You can only contribute so much to your TFSA, and the rest, well,
Yeah.
you're getting taxed on it.
That's
You're getting
annoying, eh?
taxed.
Those limits. It's
Yeah,
messed
you're
up.
getting taxed to hell.
Yeah.
And the way to bypass it, have your own business. Write shit off, pay yourself, but you're basically living through the business. And people do that, and I find it complicated because now you need an accountant. And yeah, you might have some more buying power, more leeway, more credibility. But I find it just adds this element of complexity. And I'm a guy that wants to keep things simple, and I want to be free.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people out there that are about making money and growing and expanding, making money grow. Like that's it. They're just driven by greed and probably by fear. I was listening to a podcast today, Tim Ferriss, Matthew Ferriss. I read his 4-hour work week, and that has completely changed the way I look at things. He has all his tips and tricks and all that stuff, which was interesting because I didn't know those things existed. But after reading his book, I made some serious changes. I the 9 to 5, I started to like analyze how much time I started to look at my time as a value, as a resource. And I'm like, okay, it takes me half an hour to get to work. And then I calculated the gas. So it costs me money and time to get to work. And then I have to pay for parking. And I got to work all this time being productive. And I'm doing bunny ears for an organization that I don't support, I don't care for, it doesn't care for me, that frankly underpays me for the sacrifice that I give, that I do. And, like we get our pay raises every 3, 4 years, and then the back pay is taxed. And if we want to get that money put into our RSP, we have to go through CRA, and we could try, but the CRA just ignores us. So we ended up getting all that back pay tax when if we were given proper raises when we should have been, then we would be able to put that money in the RSP.
Yeah.
And so it's like I look at things differently now, and I just see it as a shit deal. I see it as a garbage deal. I gotta follow all these rules. I gotta wake up every day at the same time every morning, and I gotta, you know, meet a certain level of fitness, and I gotta sit at my fucking desk for 6 hours a day, and I gotta produce this work by these deadlines. And there's a social component, and there's the volunteering thing that they force on us. And you start to add it up, and I'm like, you know what? You guys are definitely fucking underpaying me for what it is you expect me to do. And when I realized it was a bad deal, I started to pull away. When I realized that, this whole unlimited liability thing and, potentially getting killed in service to your country, when I was told we were only worth $434,000, we had all of our extremities blown off, that's all we would get. When I was told that, the country lost all my loyalty because that's a fucking joke. I can't even buy a house in Canada. That'll buy you a third of a house. Yeah.
And it is weird too to think that like the country we're protecting is just a bunch of people every day doing what you just described. Like it's a bunch of human beings like waking up at the same time and going to an office and sitting there. Like everybody at every job at every company is just like being underpaid and kind of working until they're way too old to like enjoy retirement. And that's what we're like defending and like sacrificing our rights to defend everyone's ability to be like abused by some boss like somewhere for in the name of like what like it's hard to even figure out like what is everybody doing all this for if not for our own comfort, the people that are alive in this like society,
And
they never
yeah,
really put them first.
and apparently we have a good being hamster stuck in a cage
Right.
on the fucking wheel. We have a good compared to the rest of the world
Yeah, that's
that have
insane too, that it's like
that has all the
yeah.
instability, the conflict, the wars, the killing, the murder, and the human trafficking, so on and so forth. The rest of the world's on fire, and yet we have it good, and we're caged hamsters.
Yeah, we have it like different. Like I feel like a lot of the rest of the world, like they have these like they put a lot of emphasis on the family unit. There's a lot of like tribalism and like togetherness, and people are like looking out for
The way
each
it
other and
should
taking
be.
care of each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we like on our end of the spectrum, like we technically have like all this wealth and power and ability to like create, the little living conditions we want, but we're also like very isolated, and it's easy to fall out of the system. Like we have no safety net there's no like no family that's going to look out for us or something like that. Like we're all like engineered to be like to think that we need to like pay our own rent and apartment, and that it's like dishonorable to like live in groups or something, or something like that. And I feel like we're like lied to in a different way, but we don't, like, the people purveying the lies don't even necessarily, like, they're not like planning it or anything. It's just like people being not ideal to each other in a less like organized fashion. Like, I guess that's democracy versus like some kind of planned out system where they're actually like intentionally lying to the citizens or something.
Mm. I
But
would
yeah, it
very
is
much,
this idea of, oh yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I was saying like freedom is what I want. True freedom. I fought for it. I want to feel it. I want to experience freedom. That's
We
what I
should
fought for.
define. It's hard to figure out what that is. Like
Freedom
freedom.
from the system.
Yeah, the
So
system
not
is
being
so
a
hard
hamster,
to pin down.
not doing a 9 to 5, not being a slave to some company or to the economy, being able to live our lives the way we want to live. So listen to a podcast from Timothy Ferris. He was interviewing, I think it's one of his recent ones. He was interviewing a fellow that has quite the interesting biography. He started off in the fishing industry, scallops, and so his boss that recruited him from his university, if I understand correctly, was a hippie kind of guy, wearing a poncho, long hair, made $1 million a year. He was pretty wealthy. He wasn't a massive business, but he was talking about this guy, and he would take a lot of time off of work. He would just go to his cottage up in Canada. I mean, because I think this is taking place in the States. And he would just hang out in an area where he could watch the whales. I forget exactly where his cabin was, but imagine if you're watching whales, it's probably on one of the coasts. But, just talk about how this guy, if you really boiled him down, he was just about freedom. So even the way his business was, he didn't have much overhead. He wasn't vertically long or anything like that. He offered a simple service that was, effective and brought in income and that could grow, but he didn't have a lot of employees, didn't have any brick and mortar. He just repackaged scallops for the American standard and sold to the people. It was that simple, if I understand it correctly.
Yeah.
Simple business model, simple way of living, and actually enjoyed what he was doing. And in my mind, I would like to be able to get to that point where I could do something similar. There's something about owning something that's yours that really resonates with me. It just, I admire it because it's complicated in my mind. It seems challenging. I'm afraid to do it, and so I want to do it. Like the things that create fear in me are the things I want to do. It's really weird. I want to see if I can do it. Before I would just shy away from
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I
And I
can
don't.
resonate with that a bit. Like this allure of like identifying the things that seem scary to us for whatever reason, and then wanting to investigate that and feeling like if we do them all, then we have no fear, and that seems powerful. There there are a handful of things that I've come to realize, like, I just like don't like doing those things. And that's a weird distinction. Like there's things that I fear, and then there's things that like I just don't enjoy doing. And sometimes it's hard, like it's easy to like trick myself thinking like, well, I should find a way to enjoy doing that thing, and then I can not fear it or not, not back away. But then sometimes it's like, well, I can't do everything. So I just, at some point, it's like pick the things that, if I have enough things that I like doing, then I just do those things and use all the time for those. That
See,
gets
this
tricky
is
though. Yeah.
yeah. So this is the thing, and I've never actually thought about it this way. But don't do something. Okay, so I'll try to see if I can. I never actually thought this out. So if there's something that intimidates you and that you're afraid to do, try it. Just to try it to see.
Oh yeah.
But if you don't like it, you at least tried it and now you know, and you can free it from your mind. Then living your entire life and getting to your deathbed regretting the fact that you never tried that thing that intimidated you. But yeah, that's the other part of it though. It's like when you do try it, being able to honor yourself and being able to let go of it if it doesn't suit you. I think that's important. And then if you do something that you're afraid to do and you do enjoy it, I mean, it might suck in the beginning. So, like going to the gym, for instance, or if it's a really steep learning curve, try it. If it challenges you, if it's difficult, doesn't mean you're not going to like it. It just means it's going to be difficult. So, try and be consistent, take little stabs at it every day, and give it a real chance. And if you like it, stick with it. And if you fall out of it, it doesn't mean that it wasn't meant for you. You enjoy doing it and you remember to enjoy doing it, and then life got in the way, then, get back on the horse and try again. But yeah, if you really don't like something, just cease and desist. So, like, I
Yeah.
have the piano that I've dropped out of quite a few times. I love the piano. I get, like the meme between the first bottle of wine and the second bottle of wine, genius happens. Well,
Right.
when I play, there's apparently like two parts of your mind. There's like the analytical part and then the emotional part. I'm not sure if I'm really doing that any justice. But when you are doing an activity and you get into like this flow state, that's where you progress beyond your level of skill by
Oh
like
yeah.
7 or 8%. And when I play piano and I start to feel the music, I get into a flow state and I craft music instantly. I can make a song in about 5 minutes when I'm in the flow state, not even from scratch. I just
Right.
develop melodies and people are like, you have a gift. But my problem is that I'm so afraid of failure because of the piano used to identify me for so long. Like I was a piano guy. People liked me because I played the piano. It's what made me stand out. And really putting myself out there. There's so many other gifted people. It scares me, and I'm still trying to play, but to actually to record a song, I want to record a song on a full concert grand with the best quality. But to have access to that, I don't. Talk about $100,000 piano and a professional like recording dude or lady. I don't know where to find something like that. But for me to do it at home, I can't do it at home. So I think by me just saying I figured out the solution. I need to be able to go to a studio that has a full concert grand and be willing to pay some money to record my songs when they're ready to be recorded. And then let the professionals do it. Because I hate recording. I hate it. I hate
Right.
editing. I fucking can't stand it. And
Yeah.
that's the thing is you don't have to be good at it all. You can leverage other people's ability. You just have to be willing to pay for it. So I just figured out my solution. And maybe one day when I have the capital, I can have the full concert grand and have someone set up the studio and teach me. But I'm in a transitionary state right now where I'm selling my condos and I don't know where I'm going to end up. But I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to be sitting on a fucking bunch of condos that are massive liabilities. Because one, I can't have a full concert grand in here. And two, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm stuck in the cage with everybody else. I want to be free and have my own piece of land, right? So To get to that point, though, I gotta think about not just the end state of where I want to be, and because I can't get there, shut it down. That's what I did. I just did that. And by talking with you, I kind of just thought it out. But before, what I was doing is like, oh, well, I can't get the best quality, so what's the point? Well, I can still practice on the grand piano I have, still produce some pretty, because I have a keyboard, a weighted keyboard, plastic keys, garbage compared to the ivory keys of my 100-year-old grand piano. And
Yeah.
older isn't necessarily better. Yamaha, 1950s, I think it came out, destroys the quality of the Yamaha, destroys my piano. But there's something with the touch and the feel of the keys. Like when you play a well engineered, like a engineering masterpiece of an instrument, the music that comes from that is. I played a full concert grand. I had the privilege of being able to play one. A friend's actually on their farm, and Buddy bought the farmhouse apparently with the consideration of being able to fit this piano in. And I
Yeah.
played this thing, and the bass notes, oh my god. The bass notes of my grand piano, like, I don't know why it's impossible for them to be like to maintain their tune, but I can tell like they're slightly
Yeah.
off right after it's tuned. This thing, I sat down, I lost track of time. And I was in a stranger's house. I didn't even know these people. Like my friend, like it was a relatively new friendship, hanging out on her farm with like the rest of the crew. And her father is the farmer, and he comes up when I'm building this deck with this carpenter guy. And he's like curious about the deck, and we talk about piano, and he invites me to come play. So I go before I leave the farm. He's not there. Wife just lets me enter the house, says play as long as you want. Lost track of
Yeah.
time in a stranger's house, man. And I tell you, there's nothing like an instrument like that. Like I play on my keyboard, I'm like, fuck, I don't feel anything. I play on my grand, music flows through me. I played on that full concert grand, and it was just magic. Absolute magic. And then it's gone. I'll craft a song, and it's out of my memory. It's
Hmm.
and I just craft a new ones. Like I did record. I have like hundreds of recordings that are on my phone. Put my phone on the piano, and I just record. And then I got the. I think I shared a couple with you, or there was a couple of YouTube ones, right? But as
Yeah.
I think we talked about this already. I hate recording. So if I could if I could have someone do that part for me, produce it for me, then
Yeah.
I would produce music every day, and it would be a privilege. It'd be fun.
I
And
wonder if
that
somebody owns land, like what's the total cost of like from scratch build like a small soundproof room, or pay to have like a room soundproofed in like an old farmhouse? And then what's the cost of like renting like a grand piano for 1 month? And then also hiring like per hour, like an actual guy who come in and record. And then you could have this setup like you live in a farmhouse like somewhere, and one of your rooms is like soundproofed, and it's got like a door that can fit a piano easily through. And then like some months you could like rent a grand piano, they drive it out, they put it in the room. And then some days you pay like 6 hours for a guy to come in and set up recording equipment and just record. And then like I wonder, like, I guess you'd pay maybe like
a lot.
20,000 top, maybe like
Uh,
20,000 for like good soundproofing, and maybe like
I
2,000 a
wouldn't
month for
soundproof.
renting.
I wouldn't soundproof it though.
Does that make it better somehow if you had like the right acoustics in the room? If it's like that would be part of
Oh
the.
yeah, I never thought about that. Yeah, maybe, but yeah, I'm not sure. I know wood reverbs nicely, but yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
if you had like a nice, yeah, if you just had like a nice room, I guess, maybe a fairly large
I
room with like some cushions and stuff.
think it would be better to just travel to a studio that has it,
Oh yeah, just live
and
next to a studio. Yeah,
or like if there was like a
just
grand
live above a
theater.
piano store.
Yeah. Well, with my place in BC, I'm just a hop, skip, and a jump away from a
Hmm.
piano store that has grand pianos. And they actually want me to come in when I was living there,
Yeah,
2014, 16. They want me to come in and play all their pianos. for them just to kind of keep them limbered up. But yeah, I think the idea is just to go and find a studio that has this. And you know,
Go to LA.
I gotta keep playing. I gotta keep increasing my skill. But that's the thing is like if I build this relationship and I just like popped in once a week or once every 3 days, I could just mash off a song or two and just be done. Like it's not hard for me to create a song. And that's gonna be one of my biggest regrets is on my deathbed if I don't actually produce music and get it out there to share with people. Because I do make some pretty good pieces. There's a lot of built up pain in this guy, and I find that's a good way to just like release it.
Right.
So, where was I going with all this?
Same stock market rule though. Like, what if like 90% of your music is just like published out there on YouTube, and then 10% is like expertly recorded in like albums in underground conditions, and that way you have 90% of your stuff out there for people to find, and it's gonna be decent, like 90% S&P like music style like out there in the public, and then 10% is like as expertly as you can arrange the conditions to record it and then like put it out there and sell it. And that way, no matter what, even if that 10% totally fails, you have the 90% is out there. And then you have the 10% that might like the best shot you can take, but if, but then the risk is like, if you go 100% into the high investment music and it doesn't go anywhere, then you don't have anything to fall back on, like any sort of content that people can just find.
I suppose all those songs I put out there can just be that content that
Yeah.
is up.
I find
You
some
know,
comfort in thinking that, like, I like to think that, uh, like, there's a hedge against, like, even if I never do anything amazing, I've put stuff out there that people could find that is like a fallback content, and then I'm always trying to make something better. But then if not, I have stuff out there instead of nothing. Like, I feel like a lot of people, they're waiting for that moment and they're not putting stuff out. They're just like waiting around for this ideal thing to fall into place.
yeah. So the way to do it is to just do it and to do it many times. And it's been shown in many different examples. It's by doing something that you actually get good at it. So me producing a bunch of crappy songs or decent songs or whatever, the more I produce, the better it's going to get. Whether it be my
Yeah.
playing or the video editing, whatever, the music recording. It's by doing the motions, you'll get the improvements, which then eventually you might be picked up because of that effort. After the hundredth or the thousandth, the thousandth song, it's such good quality that someone hears it and they're like, "Holy shit, that's it! That's the single that makes you big." Right? That's the song that people put on repeat because it's just crafted perfectly. Well, it didn't happen with your first song. It happened because you grew and you put in that energy and that effort to get to that point because it was
Yeah.
something that you're passionate about. I mean, people they just hear success stories. A lot of times they don't hear the work that goes into that, and that's the part that a lot of us just don't know. And now that I'm aware that for a lot of people, there's a lot of work that goes into that success, and I wish they would talk about that more. The amount of work that
Yeah.
goes in, like years of grinding and effort. People don't just snap their finger most of the time. They don't just snap their finger and have success. Some people, they do get lucky. Most people don't. Most people put in the
Yeah.
work and get picked up
It
for it. And a
seems
lot of times,
sometimes it's like the people we hear about are the lucky ones. And so when they tell their story, there's like this one part of it where they just got lucky, and then we think, oh, it's like really common to get lucky or something. But yeah, there's like a bunch of people who like did okay in life and they were grinding like the whole time and they had a decent life, but then they never got lucky and had that like exponential growth moment. But like I think it's quite rare. Like I think the average person just does, the average person that's grinding, that's making content is just like occasionally making something that's pretty good, but for whatever reason, even if it's the best thing in the world, like it doesn't catch on because they don't get lucky. And I guess there's nothing wrong with that. Like you could, they
Or
should still be like just as proud or whatever. Like, you can assess the quality of it, and it doesn't really matter if, a million people didn't find it, if it's still the best thing in their eyes or like whatever, like, if people appreciate it, I feel like it's pretty much good enough. Like there's no reason that like the best music on the radio to me sounds really bad these days. I hear a lot of it like in stores, in cafeterias and stuff wherever I'm like going during the day. I hear all this like bad music and I just think like I've heard such better music, but in public places they play such bad stuff. And then I think like that's just the music that's like marketed and pushed, and those are all the famous artists that have like written it, and they're just like these big names that have so much money behind them, but they're not even making the best stuff. It's just like the stuff that we hear because it's shoved around. But the best stuff is like one level below, like like small audience, like 100,000 audience people. Yeah,
I hear the garbage that kids listen to, and they think it's music, and I'm like, this is not good. This is really not good.
it just gets stuck. Yeah, it's like designed to just get stuck in your head, and
they don't know. They don't know it's good. I'm like, there's nothing in this. Like a lot of the songs I listen to, like there's nothing in this song that makes it pop. There's no beautiful melody. There's nothing. It's just a fucking, like, I don't know. There's a particular artist that comes to mind that rhymes with rake, and I find that he's just monotone, and it's just like the one note they just ba 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 ba, and then that's it. And like, and he's huge, and like that's not singing, that's not music to me. Okay, good beats, yeah, he's some good people making that shit up for him. But I mean, as for like the talent, I'm not feeling it, man. Not compared to the old music. I put an '80s soundtrack on, and I am grooving. Because that's music, man. That was good stuff. I love the '80s stuff.
Yeah, I guess also it's like it's like subjective, like our life experience where we like what we've heard, what we listen to, that shapes the music that we respond to. So then it's like it's impossible to make a song that everybody likes. Like if you make a song that everybody likes, it's going to be the most like bland song ever. It's going to be nothing because it has to have no soul in order to appeal to everyone. But if you find, like it does seem like if you really want to like,
I want to challenge
you got to
that,
find
though.
like, yeah, that's what I'd like
I
to
want
see
to
something
challenge
like
it,
that. Like,
because if you're
yeah,
not tone deaf and you can play the right notes and those notes resonate with each other, it does not be complicated. I can play 4 notes on the piano that can bring you to tears with the way they resonate. And it just beautiful
I guess
notes.
do you
And,
think
and
like
wow,
there's like a thing though where if everybody did that, it would become like cliche. Like it would be overused. People would hear those notes too much, and you'd have
but
to
not
change it
everybody
like a little
does.
bit.
Not everybody does. I think there's a lot of people out there creating music, but I don't
Yeah,
know. I don't really feel like there's a lot of artists out there. Music is an art form to me. People can
the true
play
artists
notes.
definitely don't like rise to the top as easily as they should.
There's there's uh there's people that smash notes on a keyboard or whatever and they use their recording software. But like actually like it's an and it's seriously an art. Right? Like be able to use sound with whatever instrument you're playing to have those notes resonate in such a way that creates an emotional response within the listener. Um, Yeah, I mean, same thing with like poetry, right?
Yeah.
Some people, it's not just rhyming of words. Poetry is so much more. It's like almost like accessing the subconscious. And it's through the words that they use that they're able to create an emotional response that can resonate with the reader. And
Yeah.
I do think that it is possible to create a music piece that can touch the hearts of everybody. I think there's like a common human experience, and I think it's more and more becoming loneliness. And there's a lot of people out there with families, but there's really, when we're not around people, like there are times when we are alone, and there are times when we feel lonely. And I would say that that is an emotion, a state, a feeling that everybody feels. And I never really thought about this before, so I'm struggling to kind of articulate it. But I do think that there's this sort of common element, and that's our need to connect. Like when you think about our programming and how bad we feel when we're alone, and more we're becoming lonely. Like it's like the expectation is that you got your family growing up, sure, if you're lucky, and then you go to school and you're off on your own doing your own adventure. And maybe some people aren't lonely. Maybe I don't know, but
Yeah, there are definitely people that don't feel loneliness, but they're like an exception from the rule. And if we're talking about like a song that touches like 90% of people, I
no,
feel
I
like,
mean, a hundred
you know,
percent. I do. 'Cause we all
it's hard to
die
pick
alone.
something that because there's
It's
always like one person, like there'll be like one person that just maintains that they don't like it just to be like contrarian almost. Uh, so
they
then
no, they don't. They
it's
don't.
hard
They
to,
don't count. They don't count. No, I mean being
yeah,
able to
that's what I
actually
mean.
like.
Yeah, like not basically, yeah, like not counting those people, not counting people that have like some kind of altered brain state, but the average person on the street, if you just pick someone at random, like, they'd be like 95% likely or 99% likely to like a whatever we're talking about, like
As long as they're not
this true
deaf or
piece. Yeah.
tone deaf and they can
Yeah.
feel the art, then they can be accessed. I don't know why I use that word. I don't know why I'm saying it that way, but that's what I mean. It's like to be able to access their humanity, who they are.
I wonder if,
That
like all those
core.
like those classical artists like Beethoven and all these people. I wonder if we should say like did they invent musical structure that because they were like the first big maybe concert hall like artists, and so then did they invent did they like invent their own musical structure that people came to associate as like the accepted patterns that historically became significant, or do you think like they were doing more of like a discovery role, like the human ear likes to hear certain patterns and they discovered what they were and then wrote them down, and like they played stuff that our ear likes, or did they just like play stuff that we came to like over time and then we started mimicking it, and now all of music is attached to this like arbitrary route that they picked, versus like did they sort of discover these basic patterns and exploit them, and then sort of we've expanded like
Yeah,
I guess there's
I
two,
don't.
yeah, there's two sort of ways,
I
yeah.
have no idea
Because
if they discovered
if there is like
music.
a true song, if there's like one song that appeals to everybody, it would be more of like a discovery, like discovering that song rather than inventing like a song that teaches people to like it or something.
So I don't know who discovered all the music theory where it came from. Um,
Yeah.
and you know what I think about them? They made some good songs, but I mean, for me, a lot of it's just flexing. I mean, they created some good stuff, okay? And they're considered legends. But I've heard some songs out there that have way more heart and feeling than the songs I've heard from these legends.
Right.
And I'm just starting to wonder, like, are they so big because people are just echoing that they're big? Like you see the flexing. I've listened to all of the Moon Knight Sonata. I mean, he really flexes with the last movement or whatever. And I'm like, it doesn't even sound good. It's just fucking. It's just him going crazy with his fingers. And, and I'm
Yeah, I
impressed because
wonder.
he's
Yeah,
he's he's going nuts and he's able to maintain the rhythm, but it doesn't evoke any emotion. It's not beautiful. It's just flexing. It's just skill.
yeah,
And there are masters at piano. Like, from the moment that they are able to walk, they've been playing the piano. And they know every single thing there is to know. And they're like they play in these orchestras, but they can't make their own music because they're not artists. They're just players. They're mechanical. Are
I
they
guess
are
a lot of
those
people.
are those
Yeah, go
great
ahead.
piano players? Are those true pianists? Are they artists? Or are they just machines that have been trained to a certain level of
Oh
skill that
yeah,
can play any and everything, but yet can't produce their own music?
that's true. Yeah,
So, like, I'm complete opposite of that.
yeah,
And I don't know. I don't get why these guys are legends. And I start to think it's because people just, oh, it's a good song. There's lots of skill there. So, over the time, they've built up this reputation of being legendary. I don't know.
yeah.
I
People can't tell the difference either.
I
Like,
just don't get it. I don't see why they're legends. I don't know why their names are so popular. Einstein, I
right.
get. And then I hear stuff though Einstein stole of his wife's work. So I mean, but I mean I get why
Yeah,
Einstein.
humans always they pick like one name and attach everything to it when it was
Yeah.
always like a group. It was always like people building on each other's ideas and working as a group or something.
So maybe it's not loneliness that's it's because everybody feels it all the time, but maybe the fear of loneliness. Maybe it's like in our programming. Because in our programming, if we're programmed correctly, most of us are. Some of us are not, though. I mean, there's fucking sociopaths and weirdos out there. Uh, most of us don't want to be alone. There's like this fear of loneliness. There's this desire to want to be accepted. I mean, I really think that's what drives a lot of our behaviors and actions, like this wanting to not fit in, but to belong to something beyond ourselves.
Yeah, that seems like a fairly powerful like base need for people.
I wonder if you can like tap into that, you know, the feeling of loneliness. Because when I play, when I'm inspired or when I get into a flow state and I release what's in me, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of suffering, a lot of loneliness. And I think that's what people feel. But anyway,
Hmm.
kind of just on this tangent here.
I guess if like let's say there's like a perfect movie about that captures like the feeling of loneliness and then you have to like score that movie with a piano track and then so that means like all of the scenes that really strike a beat as like when we feel the pang of like loneliness then there we have to start associating that with some kind of melody and then like by the end of the film we've established like a musical like translation for like the emotions that we've seen and felt in the film and then at the end of the movie you have like you can sort of put together like this song that like does something with that like the payoff moment where I don't know something happens or the character comes reaches some kind of acceptance and then the music like reflects that transition somehow. That's what I would think is like maybe a some way to approach it.
You know, I find that it's the music that makes or breaks a video game or a movie. So Final Fantasy 6, for instance, or 3 or whatever. You know what made that game great? Well, okay,
Yeah.
but people would be like, "Oh, it's the story of, all the
People do
friendships
say the
and
music a lot for
perseverance."
that. Those there seemed to
Yeah,
be an era where like it was like the first moment where you could have high quality music on games and people did that. You know, they got composers and then it actually
yeah.
did add a lot. Yeah.
But it's the music that really invoked the emotion, the excitement, the sadness in those games. They really make. Oh, it's crazy the effect that music has,
Yeah.
really. But yeah, I find it's the music that really, like, Interstellar comes to mind too. Really great melody in that. I even learned it. Uh, and I can play that, and I do my own little thing to it to kind of build it up differently and different key signature and mess around with it. It's great. I love how it builds up. But I find it's the music that really makes these things stand out. These plots, these stories. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good I like talking about these kind of ideas. It feels like there's something to like discover here that like we're almost like making progress somehow thinking and then we come to like these realizations that let us more accurately like go after the like something creative.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out as I'm saying it. It's not like I have this knowledge and I'm just fucking blabbing it on here with you. Like, I'm not just flexing what I've
Yeah.
recently learned from somebody else. I mean, yeah, I talked about Timothy Ferris, and I thought that was interesting. But there's some discovery going on. It's not me just,
Yeah.
yeah, as I said, it's not me just talking about something that I think I know, because I barely know anything. And that's something I'm realizing is the more I'm learning, I'm like, fuck, I don't know anything, man. There's so much to learn. And circling
Yeah.
back to Timothy, I mean, like, this guy is like on the cutting edge of, even he can't cover it all, but he's talking to all like these experts, and his podcasts are nothing to sneeze at. Like, they're 2.5 hours, 4.5 hours long. I mean, he gets really into them, right? Um, and this guy, he has the freedom to do this because his books are very successful. And his, podcasts, you want to make money, man. Podcasts apparently where it's at. Millions of listeners, his revenue's just coming in. So he's free to pursue these conversations with people. I mean, this is what he does. This is his job. This is his work. Somebody, was it? I don't know if it was Andrew or Anthony, said he's doing God's work almost, because he's like investigating the minds of all these influential, creative, genius like people. And I think it's fascinating. And even this guy doesn't know it all. His life is now like in the pursuit of knowledge, because there's so much to learn all the time. And I realize this as I continue to dedicate myself to learning, I don't know fucking anything. And the little bit that I do discover, yeah, it might seem impressive when I talk about it generally to someone that doesn't know, but it's really nothing.
Yeah.
And you can go down a rabbit hole in just one of these topics, become the specialist in that topic, become a doctor on that topic.
Yeah, it's
And
crazy like that.
you still won't learn it all in your lifetime. There will still will always be more to learn. And it's just part of me is like, what's the point? what's the point of dedicating all my time to learning if I can't learn it all? But then I course correct, and I'm like, yeah, no, like learning is what makes life interesting.
Yeah, that is
Increases your
does seem to be like, yeah, the ideal way to live is being curious and being in a state of learning, and that's just like that's directly fun and not really a
yes,
means to an end. Yeah.
yes, and I feel that when I completely break away from the system, I'll be able to, and I want to rediscover my younger self, the version of Justin that was not afraid to make mistakes.
Yeah, not
Eh,
like what is it called? Like pessimistic. Like as we become older, we get more like cynical and more pessimistic, and we think that like we think we know more than we do, and like every time we see something new, we just fast forward to like where it's a scam or something. And yeah, it's
sure.
fun to like revert. It's nice to revert to like the child state where like we're willing to like hear somebody out and figure out the nuance and take them at their word or give them the benefit of the doubt and see where it goes rather than trying to like jump ahead and make assumptions or something.
Yeah, but how can you not be cynical when your
Yeah.
life's 9 to 5 and you're stuck in a cage? How can you not be cynical being in that situation, being in prison in a way?
Yeah.
I get why people are like that,
And
especially
there's
when
so much
you're.
gaslighting about like the like we say we're in a prison and everyone tries to convince us we're not. And it's like I use a term like gaslighting where like they're trying to make us think that we're not in a prison when we are, and by them saying we're not, it like breaks the trust. Like, like it would be nice if more people in society acknowledged the cage that we're in, like
We are.
rather than
We
yeah.
we are in a cage. This country is put cages around us and labeled them as low class, middle class, whatever. Like we're all
Yeah.
in cages. So how can you not be cynical? Especially like when you're surrounded by people that value performance. It's what can you contribute? And whatever you can contribute is given a value, which is in the form of money. So that you can eat and whatever, fuck around. And that's what the economy values, growth and performance. And if you don't contribute, you're not seen as valuable. And
Mhm.
if that's the world you live in, and you can make mistakes because mistakes are costly, and you'd be ridiculed for them. Like, yeah, I can see why everybody's so armored up. And people are
Yeah.
afraid to make mistakes and fail, and they want instant gratification. I totally get it. And it's not a place I want to be in, man. Because we got to
Uh-huh.
surround ourselves with people that that match who we are. There's that age old saying, tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are. We surround
Yeah.
ourselves with crusty people who are closed minded. Um, I mean, we're gonna be stuck with them. I talk with people. A lot of my friends, they're doing the 9 to 5. They're in the cage, and they don't see that they're in it. They don't see that they're
Yeah,
plugged in.
that's always like sad to see when people are just eyes down going through the work and not thinking that they can have something more, and they're just like have resigned themselves to like doing what the system wants or something.
Hmm. And you talk to them about this stuff. You talk to them about money or whatever, and they they shut down. They
Yeah.
get emotional because they don't have it because they know they're stuck and they don't have any capacity to learn how to get out of it. And you know, some people are curious and they want to learn, and you spend time sharing your thoughts, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that makes so much sense." And then they turn around and they're like, "Oh well, you know what I want? I want a big house. I want a luxurious vehicle, and I want to take lots of trips." And yeah, but like, who's gonna pay for all that? Oh well, combined income. I'm like, yeah. So what you're saying is you want all this stuff. I'm talking to you about freedom and traveling the world and experiencing the world and not doing a 9 to 5. And you're like, yeah, nodding your head, and you're like, that's fucking cool, that's awesome. And now you're telling me you want all of this stuff. I'm like, but you have no appreciation for the numbers, for what it means. It means that you'll be working a 9 to 5 until you retire. Where are you going to find the time to do all this stuff I'm
Mm.
talking about? You're not going to be free. They want all these things because that's what they know. They were raised in that. Like their parents
Yeah.
had it. They had the house, they had the car, whatever else, right? That's what they've seen. And so that's what they want. Monkey see, monkey do kind of thing. And even though you're hanging out with them and you're like sharing your perspective and your dreams about breaking away, and you have this higher level. I think I have a higher level of thinking. I think differently than others.
Yeah.
And I feel really lonely because of it. I mean, you might get it. I think you get it. Because you talk about not owning a car,
Yeah.
and we went for our long walks together, which fucking no one
Yeah.
does. Geez, I barely do it. You dust me, man. I mean, you can go for days, but like a lot of people, they're not like that. And so you try to talk to them about it, and they're like, yeah, like I said, that they're nodding their head. They think that's great. They're excited. They're cool. Like, oh wow, they're learning so much from you. And then they turn around and they're like, oh, I want that big house. I want that nice car. Not realizing
Yeah.
that they have to spin in the wheel to get that. And when you see like Canada, oh my God.
It is a
What
weird
the
contradiction. Like one time I was thinking that like the two things that people want are like they like well there's three things. Like they want a car, they want money, and they want to be in shape. And at some point I realized like if you just don't have a car, then you immediately have all the money you would have spent on a car, and it forces you to like
yeah.
walk. And so it's like
Yeah,
yeah,
it does.
it's like a for me it was like an instant solution. It's like walk places and save the money that you would have spent on a car and you have everything you want. But if you spend the money that if you spend all your money on a car and then you use that to avoid doing any exercise, then it generates all the problems that you think you have are all generated by these contradictory things. And I saw like everyone doing that and not questioning it, and it's very strange to live in a society that like and people will like argue with you that they like need a car and that how would we do it any other way, and uh like my solution is just like be good at walking, but if we had like decent public transit there actually would be everybody would have like an extra 40 grand that they didn't spend on the cars and they could
Yeah.
just take the transit places. Yeah.
If we had decent public transit, which we do not, at least not in Ottawa.
Yeah. Just tax heavily usage of roads and cars and parking, and then there'll be enough like friction that people will do the easier thing, which will be to just not deal with all that stuff.
You
And
know what's mind-boggling
Mhm.
is that
What's
most
that?
people don't even know what their balance sheet looks like.
Mm.
Okay, probably business owners get it. They have to have accounting and systems, and they have to have leadership to run their business. If they don't have accounting, they're just going to fall apart. But most people have no idea where their money's going.
Right. Yeah, if you have like a family house, kids, like a second person, like it
Isn't
could
that
get
wild?
pretty messy, and like a lot of
Like,
stuff is like subscription that's like out of sync, like
yeah,
deferred payments. That's what's so hard to track sometimes.
there's like, if you actually sit down and write everything down, you're like, whew, my car payments, my insurance. Because they think they can afford the car payments, right? But they don't factor in all these other sort of costs that are adding up, right? I know
Yeah.
mortgage is usually the biggest one, but you also, a lot of people don't even factor in their property tax, right? They just get hit
Right.
with it once or twice a year or however often their city charges them when it happens. And they're like, oof, that hurts. And they carry on and they forget about it. But when you actually like know what your property tax is per year, divide by 12, and you look at that each month, you're like, oh, yeah, that's an additional cost I was not really thinking of that I had each month. But when you do a balance sheet and you can see all your costs, man, I did that this year. I did it this year. And I quickly understood why I have no buying power.
Hmm.
And that's because condos are garbage. The fucking maintenance costs, man. You're paying for the goddamn mortgage and then this maintenance cost, and it's just better to buy a house. At least you got control over it. But you factor in the insurance too because the deductibles keep going up, and you're tied to another unit, which increases risk. When you really start to tallying it, when I tallied everything up, I was just like, whoa. And I don't have vehicle payments, and my insurance is probably as low as it can go. It's
Yeah.
dirt cheap because I've been accident free my entire driving career life, and I'm frugal, so I penny pinch everywhere. I harass the phone company to give me the lowest possible rate. Oh wait, I don't even pay for my phone. I just use my work. That's how cheap I am. Man. I use my
Oh yeah.
work SIM card. Yeah, yeah, and just take it out of my work phone, put it in my own personal phone, and it works. They can't monitor me. That's how cheap I am, man, and are frugal. And still, when I put the numbers on paper, I have no buying power.
Hmm.
Uh, it's crazy. Interest rates. Yeah, that's part of the issue. Following old, antiquated financial knowledge. It was variable in the long run is better, but there should be like a little clause in there, which is if you get an interest rate of 2%, you should lock that in for as long as you possibly can, because it's quite likely going to go
Right.
up.
Yeah.
There's so many lessons I've learned as a result of what's happened, where there's a lot of people that don't realize these things. Like the system that we're in is so complicated. You don't realize how complicated it is until you're in it, until you're actually feeling the pains of it. And I don't want complex, man. I want simple. And I'm finding the more I learn about stuff, it's complex. Like Canada, man, get me out of Canada. I'm serious. The way the taxes are, the way the pensions are, everything in Canada is too complicated. Most complicated taxes, I think, in the world. It doesn't make any sense, man. Like, it really
Right.
doesn't.
Yeah, it would be a huge win if they could simplify that stuff. It would go a long way, even if it was like the same cost, but like way simpler, and we could actually calculate what we're spending on tax. Then it would just give us more power to forecast.
I got a theory what the problem is. The government keeps getting bigger and fatter and expanding. I think Robert Kawasaki was saying this. And so they need to create work to substantiate why they exist. And I think this is why
Mm.
there's so much bureaucracy and why things are so complicated, because you got all these people that need to justify their salary, and so they make things super complicated for the average person. I think creating concise stuff is a skill. And I think the more concise something is, the more time it takes to get to that point where it still makes sense, right?
Right.
And there's that, but I also think people create work. And I realize, like, being military and strategic level, when you're shackled to the desk for 6 hours plus a day and get to go out, do PT, whatever else, you get bored if you got nothing to do.
Yeah.
But you got to sit at the desk, otherwise the boss gets mad at you for not being there, because like of this, I don't even know where it came from. This whole 9 to 5 bullshit. Why do we need to be in the
Yeah.
office sitting at the desk for all that time?
It's like,
And
yeah,
so,
everybody's like tricking each other for the benefit of no one. Like what?
right. Yeah, yeah. And like people have meetings just to shoot the shit. I'm like, no, man, like you're just wasting time. Why aren't we going home early and spending
Yeah.
time with our family? Why aren't we doing our hobbies? Why are we wasting away in this building?
Yeah.
I've once I open my eyes up to it, man, it's like I might have said this before. It's like being unplugged from the system. It's like the Matrix. And that movie is emotional for me. When Neo gets released after he takes the red
Oh yeah.
pill, I mean that makes me emotional because that's what I felt like this year. I mean I've
Well, I
been
kept
breaking away from. Mhm.
uh like whenever I've
I'm
been
saying
talking
I
to what's that?
when I've been breaking away from the system for a while now, but when I really started to get some serious movement in it, like I feel like I'm going down that chute like Neil did. What
Right.
are you saying?
Yeah, I'm saying like when I was feeling the most that way, I was framing it as like that I was becoming like disillusioned with society, and I was telling that to therapists, and they're like, tell me more about that. Like, I felt like, it was sort
How
of
does that
like,
make you feel?
yeah, it was just like I was thinking to myself like, I gotta fix that somehow. Like, it's like it sucks to become like disillusioned with society where it just seems like every system, every time anyone's asking me to do anything, I can see how it's just like this charade we're all playing, and it's just this complicated mess. uh and I was trying to sort out like how do I like reclaim like motivation for like moving forward when like this is just like one big illusion and we're all just like tricking each other sort of thing. And that's like
That's exactly what it is.
yeah, that's the yeah,
All
like that's the yeah, it's weird to just think like how do we deal with this, like crazy.
everything we've built is an illusion that we believe to be true and correct because we've created
Mm.
it. The book
Yeah.
Sapiens, this is coming from the book Sapiens. I never realized, and the more books I read, the more, I wouldn't say lightened I get, but the more the dots connect. And our, we're the only mammal that can make something up and believe it to be true,
All right.
like religion. And yeah, I think there was like a study with monkeys or chimps,
Oh yeah,
like
the button
promising,
shocking thing.
no, like promising a chimp that, he'll get a banana eventually or something, like
Mm.
credit or whatever. No, the chimp wants the physical banana. He doesn't want an illusionary banana. He wants the
Yeah.
real thing. He's not interested
Doesn't
in
want Yeah, doesn't want a banana that grows in size 8% a year on average for 30
or like
years.
a banana and a piece of paper that he can then cash in later for banana. I forget exactly what it was, but it's like Jim's not having it. Jim does not believe in something that's not there in front of it, right? And it's like because of our, the cognitive evolution and our brains being bigger, I forget what part of the brain is responsible for us creating illusion. I need to actually like not
The
dissect the brain, but
like the
map
outer
it.
layer. So this
I
whole
need to,
outer layer. Yeah.
I gotta map it, man, because like I
I
gotta
don't know if
remember
there
which.
is people are getting away from the idea of like specific regions. A lot of it is like there's generally stuff, but maybe there is still parts. I don't know.
Well, there's like the older
Like the
brain, the limbic
amygdala. Yeah.
amygdala. Well, there's like
Yeah, the inner,
there's
the outer,
the
the
older lizard
primal.
brain,
Yeah.
as the wealthy barber calls it. I think his name's David.
There's the
And then
prefrontal cortex is the first part to get like drowned out by alcohol. So that's what I know. And that's the front
yeah,
of your head.
so there's like the old brain, and then there's a more developed brain on the outside. Older brains
Yeah.
on the inside, and I want to map the brain because there's ties into hormones and stuff. And it's not just the brain or parts in the brain that produces, what is it, the pineal gland or whatever, that produces hormones. Like there's our adrenal glands that are, I think, above our liver, if I'm not mistaken, and then there's our testes or the woman's ovaries. Like there's different organs that are responsible for different hormones, and I want to map these systems out and actually like, master them. But anyway, where was I going with?
The chimp and the not believing in fake
Only
stuff.
species to fucking make something up and believe it to be true.
Yeah.
And it was through the creation of religion or the believing of gods that were responsible for all the anomalies or the things that we couldn't explain. Is that how people came together and eventually we were able to form groups over 150 and eventually build a civilization? We fucking made it up, and so it became true. Yeah, it's crazy. And this is the interesting is like who decides what made upness sticks and what doesn't stick? The person with the gold. The golden rule is the person with the gold makes the rules.
Gold also being an illusion that we made up. Like the value of this arbitrary shiny metal that we all believe
Well, it's
in.
difficult to get, so that's and it has
Yeah.
practical uses. So yeah, I hear you. It's a precious metal. I mean, it's pretty useless as armor.
Or
In my
even
video,
like at some point it
huh?
was like whoever said they were like the messenger of God, that was like the authority. And then the guy who with all the gold took over from them. Maybe it was the same person just shifting roles or something.
But like I've connected all these dots, and I realize, why things are the way they are. We sustain the illusion, man. We really do. And if we don't, and we challenge the system, well, we're painted as terrorists. Well,
Yeah.
when we challenge the government and we oppose it, we are, we're deemed evil.
Yeah, we don't.
And
I guess we don't have to like aggressively challenge it. We just have to like opt out and like somehow enjoy our life without buying into the system. Sometimes we have to like play small parts in it, and but try to like try to be try to have a healthy distance between ourselves and the system.
mhm. The system will crush you, though, if you're not careful. I mean, if you're not seen as someone who contributes, or this is how I see it. If you can maintain an image of, if you look like you're wealthy, so this is kind of like something that I've been
Oh yeah,
practicing. So I don't work right now. I'm off work for personal reasons. I was remote and then now I'm off. But people see me. I don't give them the sad story of what's going on. Just be like, yeah, I don't need to work. And I let them think what they want to think. A lot of times, what they think is, oh, he doesn't need to work, so he's rich, he's wealthy.
yeah.
And you just let them create that image of you, and they have more respect for you. And next thing you know, they're calling you doctor. Like,
Hey, call you doctor.
like they think you're like super wealthy because you don't work.
Yeah,
And you can just let them think that. You don't need to correct them or, you know, it's not lying. You're just not sharing what your story is. But you're not working 9 to 5 either. And they just see you permanently on vacation. So, it's something I'm trying out. And when I'm out of the military, if I have enough wealth built up and I don't need to work, then I don't need to work. We'll see.
yeah. It's hard to make that call. It's always feels like as soon as one says they have enough for retirement, they just spend all their time like second guessing themselves until they end up like going and getting a job just to like make themselves feel more secure.
Mm, yeah. If you got enough wealth though, and you can live off of that wealth, that money working for you, and you don't need to work. This whole idea of working for money is backwards to me now. I know most people are programmed that way, but no, I think money should work for you. If you have enough, I see money as mass,
Yeah.
right? Small amounts doesn't really do anything, but when you have a lot of money, it attracts money.
Yeah, it could be
That's
true.
how it works. Also, too, visible people attract money. The louder you are, the more visible you are, like out there in the public space, people,
Right.
from what I understand, will throw their money at you. This is what Grant Cardone is saying. He's like, you want to have lots of money, be visible, be loud, be noticed, say
Mm.
something credible. It makes sense, but that's not who I. That's not what I want to do. If I
Yeah.
had the ability to be a secret billionaire, I would. I wouldn't want to be flashy. I want to be under the radar because I don't want the public knowing my business.
I guess in some sense, like if we imagine what is a seek like let's say you technically have $1 billion, but you have to spend almost all of it except for $1 million in order to remain secret, then like in actual fact you're just like a millionaire, but you spend like all your other wealth trying to remain secret. Then there is no like maybe that is like let's say we become a millionaire, the cost like every day perhaps we could pursue being a billionaire if we chose, but the cost of remaining secret is simply not growing the wealth. Like rather than like getting to 1 billion and then spending it all remaining secret, we just pay the price of not accumulating it in the first place. And that's the price we pay for like remaining secret, is being like quote unquote like a humble millionaire or some kind of person with a few tens of millions or something.
Mm. I
Like not
wonder if there
selling
are.
out.
I wonder if there are any secret billionaires. Maybe the ones I got into crypto. But outside of that,
Yeah,
like if
most
you have
like yeah.
a blue chip company, you're visible.
A
So
lot
it's
of tech, what is it called? Oligarchs. Like there's like a single bank in Russia that keeps track of like which Russian oligarchs own what, and nobody knows who owns what. It's just like a secret list in like a safety deposit box with like people's names on it saying like what companies they own, and nobody gets to see that list. And so nobody knows, like all they know is like the oligarchs are probably billionaires, like they don't know in exact detail what they own, and they like it that way. They like they bought the bank and did all that
oh,
to protect the like so that nobody knows exactly what their assets are.
interesting. Yeah. I'm spending a little bit of time daydreaming about what would have been like if I put 10,000 into Bitcoin when it was 6 cents per Bitcoin.
Well, then you'd be like you'd be still be like unemployed right now, not having to work, but you'd have to tell people you're like a crypto bro, and then they would lose all respect for you.
They lose all respect. Nah, I wouldn't tell him shit. No, even if I put 1,000 in at the beginning, I mean that would have been sitting on crazy. Because that's what I would have done, I think. Well, I knew a dude that was mining back in 2011. He was in, do you remember in Borden, the
Yeah, I remember like
hotel?
yeah, we didn't have to pay for electricity, so you could just kind of
Yeah, but you remember like
use
the
it. Yeah,
hotel type, like Bravo
yeah,
something, right by the mess?
yeah.
Well, I was on, I don't know, were we on the ATO course at the time? Or was it might have been
Some
my logistics,
trades
it might have been
training.
logistics training, but he was mining
Yeah. Yeah, I
Bitcoin.
think the deal was like
No.
you could join like a pool of miners, and you
Mm,
and anything the pool made, you'd get like a fraction. I don't know
okay,
how much the pool made.
this changes
Yeah.
things. Because if I met this guy 2013, that was a bit later on, so I wouldn't be able to have as many Bitcoins as I thought I would have. Okay. Just
Yeah.
I was thinking like right at the beginning, six
Mhm.
cents, but it might not have been 6 cents. It might have been a bit more for Bitcoin at the time. But yeah, he was mining, man, and I'm pretty sure he would have showed me. He seemed pretty open about it all. But he had like crazy amount of it was just walking in there was like a laboratory. It was crazy. Free energy though, why not?
Yeah.
But yeah, I do daydream about what that would be like to be sitting on that kind of money, not having to work for it, not having to hustle, not having to have a brand or do all that work.
Well,
Just
I always think that somehow, like whatever happened to Bitcoin, I feel like some asset somewhere today, right now, is low and is going to grow in 10 years, like at the same size, and we're sort of missing it. Like in the same way that we missed Bitcoin, like something out there today is like that, some small company, whatever, and we're sort of just like every time we think we missed the one opportunity, like we're missing some
another
opportunity
one.
today. But yeah, it's
Yeah,
still the same challenge. Like we're never it's like there's 100 things out there and 99 of them are like not gonna grow, and so then we're faced always with the same problem of like you're just buying a lottery ticket basically, and then of course no one's gonna win the lottery. uh so then it's easier to just find a way to have like maximum happiness with it, assuming that won't happen rather than counting on that thing. Because I don't know, I
yeah.
feel like the
So
money, like we'd be having like exactly the same discussion about like what does it mean to creatively express yourself, and can you write a song for everybody? Like that exact same problem. Like money, I don't think money solves that problem. I think it is just like we we have a range of experiences for free, and then we like tie them together and we find the patterns and stuff. Like loneliness too. I feel like actually like people with massive amounts of wealth, I think, experience a lot of loneliness because they end up in like big mansions alone with like their only people they encounter are like servants or something, basically.
or they deal with other rich people that talk about
Mm.
social status or whatever.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know because I don't live that life, but I've heard stories.
I wonder about actually, you know how like a lot of the famous musicians, they started basically like poor and they made some great music. And then there's always like a transition where like a lot of rap starts with like drugs, guns, murder, like anger, and then their later albums, once they've made money, are about like having money and spending money and showing off money. And like they are just talking about their own life, like that's the transition their life like went through. And I always feel like the original stuff is more like real and authentic, and that's what makes it good. And it was like this like struggle and this like creation, but then later it's like they're in the big fancy studio and everyone they know is just fancy and rich. And it's like what entertaining song that we can relate to? Like it's not, they're never going to write anything that we can relate to because like we can't relate to their life. Like they just have a bunch of money and they go to clubs, and like why would that be interesting to us? Like we want to hear about like the real middle class like working person who has our same range of emotions and problems and stuff. But like a lot of famous artists are immediately not that. Nobody's like making like a normal
You
salary
know,
for producing music.
as we're talking about this, I'm realizing what's kind of making me unhappy. It's I'm putting my energy and effort into learning about money, which I think we should do so that we don't squander it. But I'm looking a lot into money and wishing I had more, and I get it because it buys me freedom from the system. I think I can get freedom from the system in a different way, and I
I think
don't
so, yeah.
I don't want to be um spending shit tons of money at bars and having luxurious. I'm a minimalist at my core.
That's
My
the only
wardrobe,
true freedom, I think. Like
yeah.
I think this like the system is money. And so the more money you have, the more you depend on the existence of the system for you to flex your power. But if you are happy with nothing, then no one could take that away, and you have complete freedom, basically.
It's value in the things that are important: your life,
Hmm.
your health, and the relationships that you've built over time. And
Yeah, and
I'm
why do people keep telling us we need money to have those things? You know, it's like those are the only free things that anyone can easily get. Like,
because
why are we like working
yeah,
so hard?
and I listen to people that talk about owning all the fancy stuff, and I'm like, yeah, they'd be working for that forever to just have that. And I'm like, then you got to maintain it, and
Mhm.
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
So there's like, I guess it's just because of what I think it boils down to the environment that I'm in. And if I am going to write a book, which is something that scares the shit out of me, it's going
Mhm.
to be about environment. It's going to be about how it can make or break us and how it shapes our mind and our personality, and how by changing our environment and where we live, we can change our lives for better or for worse. And
yeah.
the book's going to be about my own personal story because it is quite interesting. Um, and I've actually had pockets of stability and happiness where I thrived, where I became like, I was in an enriched program, gifted program in school from special needs. I went from being in an unstable home where I was worrying about getting my ass beaten into the ground, special needs, to stable foster home with structure and discipline and healthy lifestyle, to accelerating, and how that was taken away from me because of a bad decision going into an unstable home, and how then having a stable home allowed me to get top marks in my high school. I was the highest in my high
Oh yeah.
school next to this 25-year-old who I don't know why he was in that school. It doesn't make any sense. And
Yeah.
like, when my environment was stable and good and I was thriving, and when it was chaotic, because that's what it's like being in foster care or in group homes, it wasn't so great. And being in the military, moving around all the time, how that impacted my life. And then this next chapter of getting out of the military and having stability and building community for the first time in my life, actually having community. I can tell you that it's going to be great. I know it's going to be great. I had some reluctance at first, thinking I'll be lonely. Yeah, at first, but if I put myself out there and do the things I love doing, I'm going to meet people,
Oh yeah.
good people.
People
And
that are also looking to meet people too. Other people are
yeah,
looking to meet people. Yeah.
so everything outside of BC in Canada doesn't make sense to me. Canada just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Too far north, taxes are too high, socialist type taxes. Like, that's how much we're taxed, and yet we don't get the free education. Healthcare is abysmal, and blah blah blah. Canada does not make sense. But everybody comes to Canada. I don't know. Um,
Go
BC
to
is the only place in
Switzerland.
Canada. Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a good idea. It's the language thing, right? I want to go
Yeah.
to a place where you,
Oh yeah.
speak English. But like BC, right? So that's where I'm going to end up. I'm going to end up on the island, and that's where I'm going to build a community, and or be in a community, and find happiness there. I know that there's a lot of people still plugged in there. I've dealt with them, and they're surrounded by nature, and all they do is drugs because they never go outside. But there's tons of people that actually like love being in nature, and I'll meet those types. I know it.
Yeah.
And the book is going to talk about my story. It's going to look into some research as well, like the blue zones. There's a guy that did 20 years of research. I'm going to look at lifestyle. I'm going to look at hormones, and I'm going to be like, by changing our environment, really the story is the environment that a lot of our that we find ourselves in, the cage that we're all put in. is not natural. We have not evolved, and this is the Sapiens book now. We have not evolved to live in civilization as it is. Too many stressors, too much going on, the destruction of community and family. It's all unnatural. Prolonged standing, prolonged sitting, lack of activity. None of it makes any sense. It's all about fueling the economy. And it's an unnatural environment. And by us being in this environment, it makes us ill. And when you look at the blue zones, the few that are there, they actually are shrinking because of Western influence.
Yeah.
When you look at the blue zones and what they are, right, the Netflix show Live to 100 covers 3 core areas that tend to overlap. Like there's community, spirituality, belonging, which is one, like taking care of the elderly. Moderate physical activity every day in some form. And also tied to the communities, like purpose, having your own purpose. Moderate physical activity, like living a life that's filled with physical activity. So yeah, not being dependent on a car, for instance.
Yeah.
Walking up steep elevation. Moving all the time. And then the diet is absolutely huge. It's massive. Unprocessed foods, mostly plant-based. Right? Like it's
Mm.
like the diet and what you put into your body is massive. Now, what was not covered was toxins. Toxins were not covered. And in a modern home, we're surrounded by toxins. All the scented shit, all the chemicals we use to clean, our furniture off gases because, big tobacco, I guess. I don't know why this was a
Yeah.
thing, but people fell asleep with a
Right.
cigarette, died.
Yeah.
Did I already say this?
Yeah.
But
And so
instead of,
they like fireproof the furniture. Yeah.
all right, fucking crazy. So now everything's
It's hard to
fireproof with
separate, like, because there's two variables there. There's like we have toxins in our homes, but also, like we have pesticide on our food, but we don't also have like the non like the healthy food version of the food. Like I feel like it's hard to separate the adverse effects of the toxins and the unnutritious food, but also account for the fact that we don't have access to like these exercise and stuff like that. And it's like,
because where we live.
you know,
Yeah.
but I
So
feel like you got to examine like an area where like they have all the good stuff, but also their furniture is like loaded with toxins. And then you could measure like that area versus the blue zone. And then you could say the only variable that's different is the furniture toxins. And then you could measure the lifespan and say like the furniture toxins account for this reduction like precisely,
but it's more than
without
the
any other.
furniture.
Yeah.
It's either civilization or not. Now Singapore, I
It's
don't
like a
know if that
lot
was
of little stuff. Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know if Singapore was considered a blue zone. I know it was in the show.
It's
Might have
got
been. Oh,
it's got some great YouTube video that like there's like 10-minute YouTube videos that show how well planned the
great.
Singapore city is, the
Yeah,
developments and the walkability,
amazing. And incentives to live near the elderly, like
schooling,
live near your
very
parents,
good
and
schooling too. Yeah.
yeah, like
Yeah.
to own a car is super luxurious. Like
But then
most
people
people
said that
don't.
the government is like it's kind of like leaning away from democracy, that government. And that's interesting. Like
Hmm.
we all there it's hard to like once you see all these great things happening, there's always like it's because like someone centrally planned it, but in a couple years they're gonna like reach too far with their power, and then it'll go the other way. It's
Democracy
always weird. Yeah,
is garbage. It really is.
it's weird.
So
That's what's strange is that it's almost like as garbage as democracy is, it's immune like by by being so chaotic, it prevents like a power grab or something. And then like whenever there's like a power grab, things are good for like a split second, and then the whole thing collapses almost. And then so it's like what is a better state to be in than like a state so chaotic that no one can use it for their own means or something.
But
And that seems like a
you
weird,
there
you
people
know,
are
yeah,
pulling there are people that are pulling the strings. And it's not just me putting on
yeah,
my tinfoil hat here.
yeah.
Politicians are being
Yeah,
puppeted, right?
we are close to like oligarchy. Like there's a handful of rich people in America and stuff, and especially Canada, that they have so much money and political influence that they're kind of untouchable, and their power is like really putting pressure on the legal system and stuff. And I feel like like
Yeah,
oligarchy is definitely not a good direction to move in, but that seems to be what it's becoming.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
Might have been that way since the expansion to the west.
But what if like a bunch of oligarchs were in charge of like America, and they all did everything they could to convert us to a blue zone, like mimic everything for the blue zone. They forced everyone to do it.
Not profitable.
And then
Not gonna happen.
yeah,
You have to eliminate
yeah.
fast foods, and you would have to
Hmm.
get rid of
They could short
cars.
they could short the
You-
market, convert to blue zone, and then cash out their stock. Like bet on the crash of the economy.
So, like, what's
Yeah,
going on?
we gotta get enough billionaires shorting the market, and then have this big push to the blue zone, and then when the stock crashes, they'll all be rich, but we'll already be in the blue zone, and then they'll die because they didn't adopt. In 100 years, we'll all still be alive, and they won't. And then we're back. Then we're set.
But yeah, it's like so the blue zones are shrinking, and it's because of Western influence. And so the more that there's Western creep with the the fast food places and the furniture and the tech, the phones, the games, the
Yeah.
lifespan decreases. So uh, they didn't look at toxins or the impact on our endocrine system, which is huge. I mean, even with like our water, right? All the hormones that are in our water because of fucking birth control pills or whatever it is we're dumping in the water. It doesn't get filtered out. That's why women are going through puberty a lot faster than they should be. It's because of the amount of estrogen that's in the water. But imagine what it does to men. Excessive estrogen in men increases our risk of heart disease.
That stuff though seems like an easy like because sometimes people drink like water filters, bottled water. Different states have different water sources. It feels like you could easily find like a state where the level's high and a state where it's low, and then do like a cross comparison, see like easily examine the effect. And then once you have that, then you can just clearly show like it's an issue or it's not or something.
It would be nice
People probably did it.
finding an area where the source of water isn't contaminated. I mean, Canada has
Like
what
how
most of the fresh water
yeah.
in the world.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe somewhere on Vancouver Island where there's like lots of mountains or whatever, I can maybe find some sources of fresh water and live there.
You
That's an
need
idea. Richard,
the
that's an idea.
what's that thing that's in water that protects our teeth, like fluoride? If you don't drink a little bit of fluoride in your water, then your teeth don't do very well.
I would look
You have
more
more
into that.
cavities.
Apparently, fluoride is very bad for endocrine system, and it's suggested. I've read that it's you should probably eliminate that from your toothpaste and from your water.
I think though when like the reason they introduced it was to prevent like cavities, and then it did. But
And
maybe it has a
still
side
got,
effect or
I
something.
still got lots of cavities, bro.
No, but
You
like prior,
know,
I feel like people like there was this whole idea like British, like wasn't it like British people have bad teeth and then we didn't, and
they just have horrible
eventually
dental
they
care. Don't they have a lot of sweets too?
yeah.
The amount
Yeah,
of
they have
sugar
that
that you
stuff.
consume,
Yeah.
and if you don't have good dental hygiene, yeah, you're gonna get right fucked.
But that's actually the study I want to see is because some people do drink like only bottled water. And I think there's been like stuff to show like, well, they just have they have like weak teeth or something. And then it was like, you know,
Most people
because
don't even
there's
floss.
no,
Most people
yeah.
don't floss. Most people don't brush enough. Like I don't know. There's a lot of factors that, are in it, but fluoride is not good for our endocrine system. And I switched my toothpaste to a non-fluoride toothpaste as a result of it.
Yeah. I imagine it's one of those things where like there's a acceptable level, like for radiation, like there's an acceptable level of like radiation that there's no issues. And then like you obviously don't
Until
want
there
to
are.
over,
Yeah.
but it's like that.
Until
But I think that like it's obviously it's sort of like one of those things where it's like it's good to go get an X-ray, like figure like get X-rayed, get whatever scanned to figure out what's going on, and like the amount of X-ray exposure is like beneath the threshold such that like you're better off for this like low dose. And then obviously like if you overdo anything, I think it's bad. But I feel like there's like when people have this reaction where it's like in high doses this thing is bad, so eliminate it completely, and then they end up just with like slightly worse teeth or something like that. It seems like defeating the purpose. Like it's like everything is good in moderation and bad
I
in
think
the
it's
extremes.
I think it's ridiculous that they have added anything to our water. Whether that's still happening, I'm not sure. There's fluoride in fucking toothpaste. Just why are we ingesting fluoride, swallowing and drinking it when if its benefit is just when we put it on our teeth? Why don't we just
Well,
use
I've heard
fucking
about like a couple of examples of stuff like, for example, like the people had these like mercury thermometers, and the mercury thermometers would like break and the people would get sick. But people have pointed out that like a tuna sandwich, for example, is something people point to as like having mercury in it because there's mercury in tuna, but there's like two types of mercury and one is good and one's bad, and both are in tuna sandwiches. But like tuna, when you eat it, it's like healthy for you,
there's no
and
good
it's
mercury. There's no such thing as a good mercury.
well, there's
Sorry,
one that's
man.
like not. There's one that's not. Like that was those are the two points that I've heard is that like there are two kinds. One is like the kind that's unhealthy for us, but either way, both are in like the sandwich,
Uh,
and like people benefit from like eating tuna. Like it's like a healthy thing,
we should
and it's
avoid
not like
we should avoid large fish because of the mercury
But
concentrations in
there's
them.
but I think if you take that route where it's like if we just say like if we classify things as toxins, because actually like in the state of California, like everything is a cancer causing agent. Like on every building, every food and building at the grocery store is like this food may give you cancer if you eat it, and it's because they classified like everything, even a low dose of anything is a cancer causing agent, but only in the like coffee is causes cancer in the extreme, like everything does. And so then it's like we're literally like eliminating everything
You
versus
know,
just yeah.
it's probably not just California. Probably everywhere we are. It's just California is listing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's like because yeah, like well, I think it is everything. Like everything has some kind of radiation, and in a distilled like direct dosage at high levels it'll do something. But for like what should we be concerned about? I feel like there's some kind of threshold where like below a certain level it's just lost in the noise almost.
What came to mind is we're all guinea pigs in a cage, and we're shitting and pissing in that cage. Those are the toxins, we'll say. There's the ammonia from the piss, and poop is filthy. And we're working the wheels, for the economy, for the rich people, for the owners. And the owners, they're not in the cage. They're outside the cage. They're living where they want to live. Some are away from the cage, away from the toxins and the stink. And that's the image that comes to mind now when I see civilization. It's like we're surrounded by toxins, surrounded by poison. And
There's a little bit of an element of
we do it to
those
ourselves.
like those rich people outside the cage. I feel like sometimes I view them as like they have their own things that they've misguided themselves about. Like the loneliness is one. Like they've like they've collected the money. They see themselves as on top, but they have like these weird issues that leave them unsatisfied, like in society, and they have like nowhere left to run almost in that way. Like no amount of extra wealth added on top of their pile will bring them what they're looking for,
It's
and
just
that's
a
its
small
own
piece.
yeah its own
Money,
sadness.
money is a small piece to what can make a fulfilling life. I mean, there's family, career, health. There's a whole bunch of different slices to this piece of pie. And you can max out the money category, which will help enable others. But if they don't have the other slices, then yeah, they're going to be whatever. I don't feel bad for them. They can figure their shit out. They're rich. Seriously though, I mean,
Yeah, they definitely can.
I'm
They have
pretty
the
much. Oh,
resources.
I'm mostly alone. I got lots of good friends, and occasional girlfriend. I'm mostly alone, and I would very much rather be rich and alone in my current position than where I currently am. I'd rather have 500 million in the bank right now. I don't think my life would be changed in that I would immediately break free of the government, completely and fully done. Walk away. Just leave, abandon post. Done with the military, done with Veterans Affairs Canada, done with begging for my scraps that I shouldn't have to beg for. Then I go public just for fun, just to say how bad it all is, so that maybe help out the next soldier down the road, and then live somewhere comfortably and be completely and fully free to do whatever it is I want. Be absolutely incredible, man. Because I can tell you right now, people get 50 million bucks. You know what they do? They buy a house, buy a fancy car. They do what they know. A lot of
Yeah.
them, a lot of people are small minded, and they'll still live in the fucking cage, even if they got 50 million
A bigger,
dollars.
yeah, they buy a bigger cage. Yeah.
They'll buy. I in Ottawa, just where I'm around, Riverside South. Cross the bridge, go north a bit towards the Starbucks or towards some of the like more towards downtown. And there's like these fucking mansions that are like right beside the highway, facing the highway.
Yeah, they don't even
Really?
back them off. Yeah.
You got a $3 million mansion? Oh, and like barely any backyard. Massive, huge house right by a busy street with no backyard.
Yeah.
What the fuck are you thinking? Like, it doesn't make any sense, man.
Yeah.
This- I don't get it. So
Yeah.
I just shake my head at that. I mean, like, yeah, great, big house, fancy car, but location's garbage, man. I'd
Yeah.
rather live in a tiny house in beautiful in a beautiful temperate weathered area than have a mansion in this shithole. So
Yeah.
circling back, man, like the books, I'm gonna make it real. I'm gonna make it real. I'm gonna like just share everything I've learned over my life. I had quite the journey, but I want to show people that there's there's hope and that
Mhm.
they can take the reins of their life. And the sooner they do so, the sooner they break away from the system, the happier they'll be. And
Yeah.
I really believe in that. And it wasn't, it's just we have so much programming put into us. Go to school, get good marks, specialize, become super good at something, make lots of money, so you have security. Go work for a company. They don't teach us money. They don't teach us how to be entrepreneurs. The system just makes blue collared, white collared hamsters for the for the fucking machines. So it does, and all that programming brainwashes us to think a certain way. And I want to talk about that. I want to share
Yeah.
that with people, and I want to show people that there's another way. Because I got sick, man. I got really sick. I got house sick too in Borden.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't realize it until I went on a destination wedding to Dominican Republic, and I felt good. And I come back and I was immediately sick. And I was like, "Okay, there's
Yeah.
something going on here. I'm house sick." Like I read about it. It's actually a thing,
Yeah.
and could have been the water. The water could have been contaminated. Could have been the old sewer cap. The fact that it wasn't on in the basement, like in the crawl
Mhm.
space. I went in there and like actually no, rather called it in. I saw water down there, and there shouldn't have been water. And yeah, the old sewage line wasn't capped, which could have caused issues. But like I was sick, and then there's also the stress too. And there's just so much I want to say that I've come to realize, and that people are on this on they're living their lives, but it's like they're not in control. They're just in auto mode. Like they don't have any free will. They're just doing what they think is right, but there's no choice in the matter because they're
Yeah.
governed by two emotions, fear and greed. And
Yeah.
I guess the one thing that scares me is like the blue zones. I guess there's one in the States actually that I could go to is because like
Oh,
the
yeah.
other ones I don't know if they speak English, but the one in the States is kind of its own segregated community, but it's like religious. So I'm
Oh,
not a
that's
big
weird.
fan of that. But they praise God by physical training, right? By taking care of themselves, which I think is interesting. And they
Huh.
do volunteering and stuff, which is part of that community spiritual piece. But like the one I want to live is like the place I want to go to is in Italy, I think, or was it Greece? I think that'd be sick. No, it was Greece, I think. It was Greece. Yeah. An island in Greece.
Didn't their currency plummet? So maybe there's some cheap real estate to pick up.
Absolutely, yeah. And if I got passive cash flow, then I could live quite comfortably. And that's the thing is like I keep saying this is we create our own limitations. We tell ourselves what we can and can't do. And that's why I've been challenging myself doing the things I'm afraid to do. And one of them is living in other countries where I don't know the language.
Oh, yeah.
Terrified to do that, especially alone. But yeah, I've heard of these opportunities where like they'll buy your house if you pay property tax. You live in an area, and as long as you have cash flow, right? And so
Right.
that's the key. And that's what opened my like. That's what made me aware there was a 4-hour work week book. That guy Timothy, he's always ahead of his time. Just having passive cash flow. You can even work remote and still have cash flow. But if you can break away from the ball and chain, brick and mortar, and travel around, you're free. I mean, you kind of got a remote collar on you if you're still checking into work, but you're more free than everybody else that are going into the office.
Yeah, I guess the freedom equals like the ability to try new things and be flexible, and you can maybe more rapidly find like the ideal place for you. Like that's what freedom gives us the ability to do, I guess. We're not constrained in how quickly we can change our identity basically.
Hmm. But I'd never be able to do any of this if I maintained the path that I was on. If I
Yeah.
didn't take the reins to break away from the military, I would still be waking up at 5.
Yeah, it's scary. It's so easy to continue on that path. Like the hard thing to do is break away, but it's so easy to just let yourself continue. And that's scary that it would be so easy to do that and never be free or something.
And that's the reality of most people.
Yeah. Well, that was good. This was a good conversation today.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'll catch you next time.
Yeah, I'll see you next time.
All right, man. Have a good night.
All right. Bye.